by taking a deep breath, allowing the air to flow into our lungs, and allowing God's grace and love to flow into our hearts. Let's become aware of God's presence here and now. And as we release the air, we spend a few moments in silence, in prayer for ourselves and for our loved ones. And now let us hold in prayer all who are suffering worldwide. And affirm the presence of God's love, grace, and guidance in every person and in every human condition. And so it is. Amen. And now we return to our glorious soloists.
Good morning once again. How many of you remember Pete Seeger? Peter, Paul, and Mary? Beyonce? You know, I just want to include everybody. I think you'll recognize this one, though. If I had a hammer, I would hammer in the morning. I'd hammer in the evening all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, and I would hammer out warning. I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters. All over this land, all over this land. If I had a bell, well, I would ring it in the morning, and I'd ring it in the evening, all over this land. I'd ring out danger, and I would ring out warning, and I'd ring out the love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land, all over this land. And I had a song, well, I would sing it in the morning, I would sing it in the evening, all over this land. I'd sing of danger, and I would sing out warning. I'd sing about the love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. all over this land, all over this land. Oh, I feel that you want to sing this, don't you? If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land, all over this land, all over this land. Sing it again. All over this land. One more time. All over. Oh, you're so good. Let's do it again. All over this land. All over this land. All over this land. All over this land.
Don't you love it when our musicians show off? Oh. So, wow, June. It has been a month of celebrating, right? We started out the month with Pride, Gay Pride, and I talked about, or I had us maybe begin to explore how queer stories have been told throughout history. Queer people have been around forever, and we can see that reflected in Bible stories even if we have but eyes to see. Then last week we celebrated just the amazing power of these musicians and all of our soloists and Spirit's capacity to sort of reach through and bring us together in closer community and closer connection to the divine. So that's celebrating. And this morning we're sort of double dipping. We got Father's Day, certainly, which you've already begun to, and I also want us to maybe look at Juneteenth as a way of celebrating. So we're going to kind of incorporate all this partying into our Sunday lessons these weeks. Gosh, when I think about Father's Day, probably the most memorable Father's Day that I can remember celebrating with my dad was in California years ago. He's a big golfer. He's a very avid golfer. In fact, I brought golf tees just to sort of keep it close. And I think in some ways a golf tee is a beautiful sort of metaphor for the divine capacities that we see expressed through fatherhood, through the Father, right? If you think about it, it's the tee that brings stability to that first shot that you're making. And there's a certain amount of guidance, there's a certain amount of discernment that happens, there's support, there's even a level of kind of protection that happens so that you get a good start at each hole. The memory that I have that I think of with my dad, it was Father's Day, so there were a lot of foursomes out there with a lot of fathers kind of around, and it was a public course that was real busy, so you'd stand around the tee, and there were just lines of people all the way around, basically watching you on these first shots. I mentioned my dad's an avid golfer. I am not. I took a class in community college and learned to hit a 9-iron, and that's about the extent of my skill. So teed up, we were sort of there. I was the last one in our foursome to hit. And I hit it solidly, but it wasn't straight on. And so it was a shot that the clubhouse was shaped kind of like this, and it was a shot that got caught in the corner of the clubhouse and went bam, 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 bam. And then it went into the locker room and went clang, 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 clang. And I'm amazed that no one laughed at the time. I was so devastatingly embarrassed. And my dad just kind of walked up, he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "We'll drop one out there on the fairway." So I wasn't to have to make another shot. But there are beautiful ways in which that protectiveness that arises as we sort of step into and see the thing about that I want to certainly I want to celebrate fathers. In fact, those of you who are fathers, if you would stand right now so we could sort of acknowledge your contributions to the ongoing of the species and the sacrifices that you have made for your children. I wish I'd brought enough golf tees for all of you. That was, but it's the other thing that I sort of want to mention is that when we talk about the qualities of the Father, it's not necessarily about gender. It's not necessarily about identity. It's about really those qualities I mentioned earlier, like an ability to sort of be protective, an ability to be supportive, to be a provider. Those are all qualities that arise within each of us as we really sort of learn to balance all of our divinity, right? There are certain qualities that we sort of ascribe to feminine, the divine feminine, which would be more kind of the nurturing, the loving, the compassionate side. And then the more assertive is sort of the masculine. Well, the way in which we really step into our spiritual mastery is to be able to integrate those well, to be able to balance them really well. And so that's what I'm hoping we can, as we move through sort of the discussion this morning, that we can remember that it's about that balance of both. Because what I'm finding is that I through all of these kind of, as we look into these celebrations, what I'm sort of recognizing is that there's a dark side, there's a shadow side to it, and then there's the brightness and the lightness, right? And so especially now as queer and trans populations, communities are really being targeted in a lot of ways legislatively. Like the idea of masculinity and femininity and that binary kind of structure doesn't really serve us well in terms of being able to be completely inclusive. So I'm sort of wrestling with, yes, there's beauty and value in recognizing the different qualities that we embody, that we've ascribed as divine and feminine. But that the binary thinking or that happens around that is actually creating more divisiveness and trouble for us. So how is it that how do we balance those? And I'll get to that in a minute, but in the meantime, since we're also looking into the Juneteenth piece, I want to talk a little bit about Juneteenth. And I can't think about Juneteenth without remembering our dear friend Hecky Powell, who passed away in 2020. Hecky was, I moved here from Dallas, Texas, and California, but pretty isolated, I guess, in some ways. And I was out to lunch, I'll never forget, we were at Little Mexican Cafe downtown and at lunch with Hecky, and he was so excited because he had just developed this new product, and it was all hush-hush secret. He wanted it to be top secret because he wanted to beat the competition in this thing. And he had developed a Juneteenth soda, this strawberry soda that he brings out. I don't know if Cheryl's still doing that at the restaurant now, but Juneteenth strawberry soda was a product that Hecky was so excited about. And you know what his enthusiasm was like? When he started talking about something, there was just no way you couldn't help but sort of be drawn into that energy. And so I was a little bit embarrassed to say, well, yeah, what's Juneteenth? And he was like incredulous. That I did, not in any judgmental way, but just that how could I be this far along in my life? And he was so excited about the parting of it that he educated me at that at that little Mexican restaurant about Juneteenth and not just about sort of the celebration that happens as a result of Juneteenth, but maybe even more importantly for me as a recognition about the ways in which the races are still sort of operating in two different worlds, right? Juneteenth, for those of you probably all know, but just as a little bit of a recap, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. And we all think of that growing up in most of our, sort of white bubble history told books. We all think of that as the end of slavery in this country. But what we don't really recognize is that might have happened on paper officially, but it was 18 months, almost 2 years later, that Union troops finally made it to Texas and were able to sort of enforce the decree of this Proclamation of Freedom so that enslaved people in Texas were finally freed 18 months later. And that's what Juneteenth is about celebrating. It's the 19th, I think, right? June 19th in 1863 is what Juneteenth is sort of surrounded around. 65, thank you, yeah, I got it right the first time. And what I've sort of come to recognize that some of those same dynamics, that same resistance is alive and active in our culture today. And even, before I get today, 20 years ago, I was in ministerial school and with a bunch of students who learning about the history of unity and the history of prejudice and racism within the unity movement. We all think of unity as there's one presence and power and we are one and love unites us, but Unity Village was founded in Kansas City, which was the South. And so many of those dynamics, those racial dynamics, are a part of our history, continue to be part of the history. And many of you may know the story of Reverend Johnny Coleman, who was a really powerful black minister ordained in Unity back in, I think it was the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. She was just a powerhouse, and she even became, well, first I'll tell you the story of her ministerial education, right? Because at that time, Unity Village did not allow people of color to stay on grounds. Most of the classes, they were residential classes, and so most students stayed on campus in some kind of housing. Johnny, because she was black, had to bus herself in from downtown Kansas City over an hour every single day for this 2-year program. And finally, there was a day in which she just kind of lost it. It was raining and pouring. She arrived late and just sort of unburdened her heart with her classmates, who decided that this needed to be addressed. And so they addressed it with the administration, and Johnny was finally given space to live on campus, and she finished her ministerial education on campus at Unity Village. That was the first time that the color barrier had been broken on campus there. And keep in mind, that was, I can't remember now, late 50s, early 60s, not that long ago, right? Still 100 years after the emancipation of enslaved people. So Johnny did her best to sort of go along with the Unity program for a while. She even served as the president of the Unity Association of Churches, but eventually became so kind of weary from bumping up against the institutional stuff that was happening in the movement that she left. And she founded what was and still is probably the Universal Foundation for Better Living, which is sort of her own ministerial education program, and Universal Center for Universal Truth, CUT, down on the South Side, which was one of the biggest New Thought denominations of any ilk in the whole movement, and predominantly a black congregation. So she left the Unity movement and started her own thing so that she didn't have to be encumbered by the craziness of racist tendencies and influence that we're still a part of, and I believe in some ways are still a part of what we experience as we seek to become a place where we really are living out this vision to be a world that works for all, right? So now, 20 years ago, I was in ministerial school, and we had sort of, we were, young and enthusiastic, and we wanted to contribute to sort of the healing of that racial stuff. And so the idea that we came up with an interracial group and included some faculty was that we would do a formal apology to Johnny Coleman for the oppression that she had experienced as part of when she was part of the Unity movement. And we just saw this as going to be this great healing reconciliation moment. And it took a little bit of convincing with the administration at the time, but the president and CEO did agree to it. And there was some wrestling back and forth with what the languaging were going to be. And then we sent out the call. We had invited Johnny Coleman to come so that this apology could be extended by the head of the movement at the time. And we sent out invitations to Kansas City, because Unity is sort of hub there. There are dozens of churches within the local area. We were imagining that there would be members of congregations from all over coming to be a part of this reconciliation, this heartfelt thing. And so the day came, and it was a beautiful ceremony. We had put together this kind of historical record of black leaders from the very beginning of history, profiling each of them in sort of PowerPoints and telling their stories, and built up to this wonderful time of apology and reconciliation, expressing regret to Johnny. And Johnny had this amazing, of course, compelling, energetic, fiery kind of story, acceptance piece of that. And as one of the organizers of the piece, what I most notice as a result of that is Johnny, bringing her congregation from Chicago, had bought 3 Greyhound busloads of people to be a part of the celebration. And we had just a handful of folks from Silent Unity and from On the Village. The white folks just didn't show up for it. And I've sort of walked away from that just hoping and praying that there was some sort of great release that happened for those who the apology was extended to, but also a real awareness that there's still kind of different worlds that we all live in. Not a recognition that we are incredibly connected in ways that us white folks, the folks with less melanin, just don't even fully appreciate or recognize. We're just kind of in a bubble that doesn't kind of extend to that. And so I'm wanting to, as certainly we want to be celebrating Juneteenth with all of the enthusiasm that Hecky could bring to it. And I invite you to maybe stop by Hecky's Barbecue and see if they don't have the soda, the strawberry soda. But there's so much of that celebration that continues to be a part of the challenge that we face as a culture and as a nation. And I think in some ways as we move forward into this really what at least feels like it could be a very combative and divisive election cycle, that there are ways in which those of us who really desire to be able to bridge some of those differences, whether it be from gender-affirming queer people, whether it be from racial equity and rights folks, whether it be whatever, there's so many ways in which issues these days are being used to divide. And I think for those of us who are really wanting to move into a space of being able to bridge those divides, that unity has some really valuable and beautiful teachings for us to kind of bring forth. And I want to cite Eric Butterworth, who is an amazing unity author. Many of you have probably heard of him. He also passed away in the last decade or so. But he wrote an essay that I really love called Be a Center of Love by Eric Butterworth. And Unity Worldwide put out a book recently that's all based on different essays that Eric Butterworth wrote of, and then they asked Unity ministers to give their take on these particular essays. And so I was invited to critique feels like the wrong word, because I don't feel like I can critique Eric Butterworth, because, the master, just amazing. But it was interesting in sort of sitting in reflection about what he proposes in the beauty of unity and where I ended up with it. What he suggests, and he even wrote, doesn't it sound like it could be for this election cycle? When social issues become polarized and politicized, people may demand to know, are you for us or against us? Like there's so much of that where you're on one side or the other, which really doesn't lend itself to being sort of an objective, maybe open and receptive middle ground. So Eric, this is his counsel. It is important to know that you need not become trapped in divisiveness. You can take a stand for unity. The one thing to be against is the tendency to react in anger and hostility, to give vent to feelings of bias and prejudice. And the important thing to be for is the way of love. If you are surrounded by any kind of conflict, don't slip into the black and white concept of right and wrong. When you become judgmental, no matter what you say you stand for, you are on the side of the problem. I'm coming back to that. He goes on, the world needs the radiation of your love, but don't delude yourself that the world needs your religion. Don't become a proselytizer, a missionary zealot for truth. The world needs unity, not theology. It's useless to appeal to a person's mind if his mind has no part shaping the convictions of which he so tenaciously holds. That's a reference to the sort of emotional way that a lot of us arrive at the positions that we're holding. He says, as far as you are concerned, the great need is to change your consciousness, dissolve your prejudice, and heal your fears. You can become a center of love. Yeah, totally agree. All of that, right? That a big part of our being able to stand in that place of non-judgmentalism is being able to be aware of the places in which we are blind to the oppression or repression or the systems that are continuing to perpetuate the dynamic that keeps folks being treated unfairly and unjustly, right? So self-awareness is a huge piece of it. And a willingness to kind of stand in that place of recognizing that there is value to the people on every side of this. Each and every one of us is born with that same capacity to express the divine and to be able to hold that and see it even when the person in front of us is not maybe demonstrating it to fullest capacity is going to be key for us to be able to remain in that space of non-judgmentalism. But here's the place that I kind of, that I would say I would divert to kind of what Eric says. I think it's important that in some places, in some areas, that we be willing to make a judgment between what's right and wrong. And I think our model for that is Jesus. He often took a stand for what was just. Think about the woman who was being stoned in adultery. I mean, he took a stand in there. And here's where, I know I've just used this example fairly recently, but this is a little bit different perspective on it. Certainly he was in a place of judging the crowd that was going to be stoning this woman to death, of judging their action as inappropriate, as wrong. And he made a stand for her. Now, here's what he was able to do, and why I think it's important for us to explore this as an example of how to be in a place of love, of coming from a center of love, is that he was able to sort of see beyond the hostility of the crowd and take them to a space where they could be asked, let you who is without sin be the one to cast the first stone, right? So he sort of invites them into their own reflection. Not, hey man, you are wrong about this, you need to change your ways, but really creates an opening for people to kind of recognize that, oh, yeah, I can't be the one to throw this first stone. I got some of that same baggage going on for me. And then in the same way to not without judgment, without sort of condemning the woman who had been caught in adultery, but sort of equipping and empowering her to make different choices in her life without ever sort of making an assessment or judgment about whether she was wrong in the first place, right? But you have the power now moving forward to be able to respond in a different way. The same is true when Jesus met the Samaritan woman at the well, right? Made no judgments about why she was there alone in the middle of the day, about why she may have had several husbands and currently wasn't married, made no judgments about that, but was able to be in a space to recognize that there is within her this capacity for love to well up from within, and to recognize that she has beauty and value in her own existence, and to be able to proclaim that and move out forward from it. Another example, Jesus, this is sort of in the last weeks of his life when things got really intense in Jerusalem, right? But he cursed a fig tree for no reason. It was out of season. Why? And killed off the fruit that was emerging. Like, why? Like, what? Okay, so Jesus was making assessments about right and wrong in that point. Jesus was turning over tables in the temple in that same Holy Week. Jesus was, he was very quick to label even the Sadducees and thank you. I was thinking Judasees, but that's not right. Cheryl, forgive me. The Sadducees and the Pharisees, able to, as vipers, you evil vipers, right? Snakes, calling them out for their hypocrisy. So Jesus made judgments. Jesus found sort of righteous anger in a way that moved us or compelled us to stand in that space of creating a larger circle, right? So while I mostly agree with Eric Butterworth, I think there is a place for us to use, and maybe a better word is discern right from wrong, maybe than judgment. That doesn't have quite as much heft to it. But in general, I think it's important for us to have a recognition of where we stand, especially as we move forward and start to make choices and represent that spaciousness for love and reconciliation, acceptance, as we start into this crazy election season. There's one more quote I want to share. This wasn't Eric's. This is one that he quoted. He quoted a philosopher named Edwin Markham, who described this process, this marrying of sort of being with what is in a way that maybe rises above the judgmental and comes to that place of discernment. He described it as saying, he drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. So as we begin to move forward, sort of discerning, where it is that there is room for love to express more fully, where it is that we can be the presence for that love to express more fully, to be able to also recognize that those who are on the opposite side, if we're taking sides, are actually within a circle. So maybe it's on the opposite side of the same circle. And the more that we can move to the center of that circle and be a space for kind of a different energy to emerge, the more that we can really be a force for allowing the kinds of thinking and energy and sort of prayerful expression to really transform our world. that we might all live in a space oh, here's the other piece, of being an active onlooker, right? So we can sort of see and observe what's going on and also have a North Star about where we stand in that, and being able to hold a space for others to be attracted into that same energy. So at this point, I think I'd like to invite Danny and Bobby to come forward and prepare us for a time of meditation, for maybe equipping us to move more fully into that space of being centered. Center of the circle.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever seen, everything I've lost or won, everything I've ever dreamed has brought me here to a present moment, here to a new beginning, here, and I'm seeing life so clearly now. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul.
And so from this intention of preparing our souls for a deeper experience of the divine moving within us, I invite you to breathe in. It's so important that occasionally we take time apart from the busyness of mind, from just the flow of ideas that is constantly streaming through our thoughts, and to rest in an awareness that beyond thinking, beyond ideas, beyond belief, even beyond faith, that there is a power that rises up from within us and allows us to be present to the light and the love and the creative force that is the very essence of all existence, of all that is. As we become present to that, we actually create a space for true transformation of sort of the physical, human, limited understandings to fall away, so that the deepest truth of who we are can emerge more fully. Any thoughts that we are these individual entities scurrying around in busy lives can sort of be set aside. And a deeper sense and even feeling of oneness can emerge, where we can recognize that we truly are connected to all that is. Nothing we have to do in that awareness, just to be. to allow, and to trust that anything that is unlike the highest and best in us, anything that is unlike the infinite, is being transformed. That we might move through our life experiences guided by a deeper wisdom, inspired by a greater joy, and motivated by a deeper faith. So from this space, I invite you to just remember, maybe even imagine drawing a circle at which you are the center. And as you look out from the center of the circle, you take in all that is. If there's any situation in your life experience or in a relationship where there might be some tension, just draw the circle around that and include it in this awareness of faith and joy and light. And from this space, from this center, as you look out and imagine all of the circumstances of your life to be a part of this energy. That you truly become a force for transformation. That by the mere acceptance of your divinity, your oneness with the infinite, that you are an expression of that light, powerful beyond measure, infinite in capability, and unlimited in terms of ability and love. So once more, breathe in. As you breathe out, just imagine breathing out love as you survey the circle that you've drawn to include all humanity. And gently begin to return your attention to this time and this space, knowing and trusting that we are one with God. We are one with the infinite, expressing as love and power and light. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen. So this is the time in this service when we give of our tithe, of our time, and our. Let me start again. Let me ground in my center of light and love, and remember what I'm here to do. This is the time in our service when we give our tithes and our offerings. And what I wanted to maybe do a little bit of a mini prosperity lesson. We're going to start doing that as part of our offering piece. And this morning what I thought I would mention, or what I thought we would sort of talk about, is the importance of the consciousness that we bring to our giving, right? Because and we've talked about this before, but if there's any sense of, we really want to be giving out of a sense of joy and abundance. We really want to get giving out of a place of appreciation, out of like, this is something that's fun. I really enjoy that I'm able to support my church home. I really enjoy that I'm able to connect with people and know and trust that what I am giving, the gifts that I am giving, are sort of part of how this ministry thrives. And here's why it's important, because the universe doesn't make any distinction when it comes to the thoughts that we're holding, right? I can be giving very generously, but if I'm giving out of a place of obligation or out of guilt, that's what the universe is resonating with, right? The universe is hearing, oh, not enough. The universe is hearing lack. And so the giving doesn't really have the expansive quality that the true prosperity principles and abundance are about. So as you prepare to give today, whether or not you're actually giving a tangible gift or a monetary gift, give sort of that gift of gratitude and joy and really cultivate it. Sort of dig in deeply and find that however it is that you most experience joy, if it's sort of, I don't know, think of the amazing time we had on the lawn last week with the incredible voices we had, sort of the presence of being in community. Find a place where you can really cultivate a real sense of that joy and use that to sort of motivate and inspire whatever the gift is that you're giving this morning. Does that make sense? Yeah. So as we bring joy to the process, it really does create a greater sense of expansiveness. So that's the lesson part of it. Of course, the logistical part, as always, is that you can give online. You need www.uni.ns.org. I think we have an app you can give on. We need to put up the QR code. Maybe by next week we'll have that. So you can just hold your phone up and give. Or, of course, you can give here in the sanctuary. There's a bowl in the back. Put your energy in that bowl as you pass it, sort of keep the joy flowing and going. Or you can mail a check to 3434 Central Street. So with that, I want to have you cultivate that sense of joy. So picture whatever it is, a party that you're going to later today, a Juneteenth celebration, strawberry Juneteenth soda that you've tasted, whatever it is, sort of bring the experience of that palpably into your being. And speak together our offertory prayer with me. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so
Thank you so much, Bobby and Danny, for the wonderful music this morning. Let's give them a hand. I want to acknowledge the live stream team. It brings us out to everyone out there in the internet land and all of those you in the sanctuary here today. Especially acknowledge Reverend Kurt's wonderful message today. Great message, Kurt. So first, this is time for our announcements, and so we'll get through this quickly. I looked up this word so I could pronounce it. I think it's charcuterie. Close. And I was a French major. I was. Kurt, come on up and talk about it. You're scheduled to talk about the party.
I was, but I talked to John, who is
John's
co-hosting.
going to do it.
So
Okay.
John's
All
gonna
right.
do it.
Okay. I was just following instructions.
Good morning. Okay, this is very serious, you guys. We have a party next weekend, and we have spots open. We need to get people there. I can see some of you that have already signed up. I'm going to get to the rest of you before this is over. The 22 people online, I can see you as well. Let me just describe what we did last year. We turned our little backyard into sort of a secret garden, put tons of white lights up. There's a lot of responsibility. First, you have to show up. You have to put a name tag on. You have to get some food, a cocktail or mocktail, and then you have to say hi to somebody. That's it. I guarantee you guys, you'll walk away connecting with some old friends or some new friends. It's, you know, so much about what Kurt was talking today about, you know, we're dig in, look at your prosperity and find joy. This is just an easy way to do that. Come for 15 minutes, come for all evening. We'd love to have you. And it's just you know, sometimes I think with, on Sunday mornings or some of the other events, we're busy and we've got to get going to things. This is just a way just to sort of be present and just turn to somebody and just sort of say hello. So the food, we're going to have, we're doing charcuterie, so it's going to be a huge table of a huge dining room table of these different sections. There'll be Asian, Mediterranean, and then Southern American, and then a huge section of desserts. I've got one son coming in from his internship from Boston to be the bartender. I've got another one that's going to be returning from Germany. So he's going to be there helping with the food. So if they can come, these young kids can come, hopefully you guys can too, just swing by. So we'd really love to have you. And it's just a really nice, easy, breezy sort of evening that Kurt and I would like to invite you to. Okay, so please come.
Thanks so much, John. So several other announcements very quickly. You know, Reverend Kurt has talked about the spirit groups that are going on in past services. They have 2 new spirit groups for you to consider joining. First is something called Soul Fix. You're invited to embark on a transformative exploration of spirituality through the lens of cinema, hosted and facilitated by Reverend Kurt. Each session features a thought-provoking short film from a variety of genres, followed by a discussion. And Soul Fix is taking place in person on Unity starting June 25th. And I see you have the information on the screen as to the time and place. And then the other activity that's going on is the Course in Miracles through Zoom, a special class that is going to be happening, led by Catherine Curry. Course in Miracles teaches the way to inner peace and healing through the power of love and forgiveness. And both series are completely free, but you do need to register online. So finally, hey Joe, you can do the sweat lodge. Why don't you come up and talk about it? I got a script here, but you know all the details. Tell folks about it.
Good, thank you. Anyway, as a father myself, I wanted to congratulate and feel blessed as all the other fathers in this room. Thank you for being a good father. So. Anyway, next week we are blessed, this congregation. We're going to have a wonderful guest speaker from the American Indian Center in Chicago. His name is Ronnie Preston. He will be coming dressed in his full regalia and will give us some wonderful wisdom from the Native American culture. As you know, we've been studying 6 different traditions. This is the 6th one and the oldest one of all. And so we'll be getting some wonderful wisdom. He will also do a sacred prayer and chant and dance as well as part of his presentation. And that's a prelude to our final event of this wonderful Many Paths, One Source series. And on Saturday, June 29th, we'll be going to do a very sacred sweat lodge ceremony in Yorktown. It's about an hour and a half southwest of here. And anybody who is interested in that or will definitely want to come, see me after this service today or next week for sure, because I do need to give very special instructions for this, because it does take a lot of preparation, a lot more preparation than any other visit that we have been to any of the other sacred places. So see me after this service to learn all about the sweat lodge, especially if you're feeling maybe uncomfortable about it, because it's one of the most, I would say it is the most intense prayer experience I have ever had in my life. I can say for one, my first sweat lodge was in the Canadian wilderness, about 5 hours north of Toronto, in the evening, and I came out of the lodge, and it's hard to describe in words, but I had a vision of the sky like I physically saw it very differently than I have ever seen it before, and I felt completely connected with the entire vast universe, and also the feeling that I and all the other people, two-legged, four-legged, were connected with it. It was just, and it was some 30 years ago, and it feels like it was just yesterday. The power of it is still very strong in me. So see me after the service to find all about the sweat lodge. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joe, and I'll just echo what you said. My former massage therapist did a sweat lodge with her significant other in Wisconsin, so it's quite an experience. So thank you so much for sharing that. So now, those are the announcements, so now let's stand and do our peace song and prayer for protection. Thank you so much for being here in present, in the service, and online. Thank you.
And now please join me in the prayer for protection. The words are on the screen. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love